Welcome to Mindset to Results. And today our guest is Stavros Mastrogiannis. He is practical fitness coach and will share today about his story and some very tangible gifts and teachables. Hi, Stavros.
How are you? How's everything, Elena? Thank you for having me on your show. Really excited.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Tell us a little bit about you, how you started this journey, and why you do what you do.
Well, I was born and raised in Greece originally before I moved to the United States. And to be honest with you, I ended up getting into the fitness field almost by accident. Not, it wasn't, I never thought about becoming a fitness trainer. As a matter of fact, I have a degree in culinary arts because my whole family is into cooking.
Mhm.
And the way I end up getting into it is because, just like any other young adult, the one I want to be in shape so I can look good on the beach, who doesn't? And I found that a lot of the advice I was getting from fitness professionals, I could not live with. I would stick for a couple of months with it and I would fall off the wagon. And they kept telling me, wow, once you see results, you'll be motivated to keep going. Well, I was seeing results and yet I kept burning out and I kept quitting. And that's when I realized that fitness professionals don't understand people like myself who want to be in shape. I want to look good, but I don't want to make my life all about fitness. And that's how I slowly started doing more research, and that's how I end up in the industry. Uh, of course, my family did not like it because I had invested a lot of money going to school, became to become a chef, and I
Mhm.
actually graduated from one of the top schools in the culinary arts, the Culinary Institute of America. But to me, it felt right. Like after I graduated from the school, that I had lost my well, I still have passion for cooking, but it wasn't the same. And all of a sudden, I felt that I had a different purpose in life, and that was to help people like myself who want to be in shape but don't love to make their life all about fitness. And that's how I end up making the switch in my early 20s. And now I'm 52. Over 30 years I've been doing this. And my whole uh, focus was how to help people lose weight and get in shape without sacrificing all the fun in life and without spending all the free time in the gym. And that's how I end up where I am today.
Oh,
Um,
amazing.
one more
Yeah.
little point there, and that's why, by the way, I call myself the practical fitness coach because I find most fitness advice are too impractical. You know,
Mhm. Yes, yes. So let's speak about that. How keep in shape without suffering and without sacrificing something what we love to do.
well, here how I actually end up because I gotta say that when I first graduated, I went to school to get my certifications for personal training, nutrition, and when I first graduated from those institutions and I started teaching. I found that I was teaching the same stuff as everybody else because that's what I learned in school. I learned the same stuff as everybody else. And the first thing I noticed was how my clients they would lose the weight and then gain it right back. And that dawned on me. It's like, wait a minute. I'm teaching my clients the same stuff that were teaching me when I was trying to get in shape. Why would I expect them to do any better? And but then the next question is, well, I'm applying to my clients everything I learned in school, and nothing seems to work. Where else can I look for information that can help my clients? And that's where my aha moment came. Well, I was raised in a very healthy region in Greece. And the funny part is, when I could, without making the story too long, I was born, raised in Greece, but as a baby, actually, we moved to the States and we lived there for a couple of years. But my father did not like to live here, so we moved back to Greece. And I remember when I moved back to the States at 15 and had to learn English again, it was tough. I was thinking, why did my father have to move us back to Greece when I was a baby? If he didn't do that, I wouldn't have to learn English right now because I already would know it. But then now I thank God my father moved us back to Greece because I saw firsthand how people in healthy regions live and eat, which, by the way, completely contradicts what I had learned in school about proper nutrition and diet and exercise. And just to explain to your audience, when I lived there, thin and healthy was the norm. Cancer, I actually thought there was a rare disease because nobody had it. And diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's did not exist. And yet, there was no gym in the city. Nobody worried about the diet. Nobody worried about the weight or their health. How come? How come what I learned in school was you needed to consciously be focusing on your diet and exercise in order to stay in shape, where in Greece, people stay in shape effortlessly. So that's what caused me to start researching. I'm like, well, looking at my background and then looking at other healthy regions where people maintain the lean and healthy body effortlessly. And that's when I started realizing the difference. And the difference is really simple. Look at all the healthy habits that all the healthy habits that the typical weight loss and fitness professionals teach people through which they help people lose weight. They cannot become habitual. Like counting calories. It can never become a habit. You always have to think before you figure out how many calories you need to eat. Or the exercise programs are too intense. Where if you look in Greece or in other healthy regions, all the things that kept us in shape were habitual behaviors. In other words, no thinking required. It was like your fitness program was an autopilot. And that was my first aha moment.
Yeah, so good. So let's speak about that. And first, you said that you noticed that people who lose weight gain weight again. What was the first thing that you would like to recommend people to get permanent results?
Well, the first thing I would do is I will look at the behaviors through which, let's say you went to a fitness professional and he's asking you, or some diet you're following, ask yourself this question: whatever they're asking me to do in order to lose weight, can that behavior become habitual? In other words, because remember, anything that requires measuring or calculating can never become habitual. I can tell you that right now, because it requires the conscious mind. And the next question is, can I live with whatever they're asking me to do for the rest of my life? Because if the answer is no, or it cannot become habitual, that means sooner or later you're going to burn out. So to me, you have to look at the behaviors through which you lose the weight have to become habitual, have to be able to become habitual, by the way. Because just because a behavior can become habitual, it doesn't mean it will. Then you need a certain approach to make it habitual. And what I found was it comes down to really four pillars. Because the one question I get asked a lot, well, if I'm not counting calories, how am I supposed to know how much to eat? I mean, I think it's a legitimate question. How do I know how much to eat? Well, that is why nature put hunger there. So, let me ask you. I mean, I'll ask you, but I'm asking really the audience. When was the last time you? Okay, let me take a step back. What is the true purpose of eating? The true purpose to nourish the body, right? I don't think anybody can argue against that. Well,
Mhm.
how does the body tell you it needs nourishment? Through hunger. I don't think anybody can argue against that either. When was the last time you read a diet book or a nutritionist tell you, make sure you're hungry before you eat? You
Mhm.
hardly ever hear that. And to me, learning to identify true hunger in eating because of it is one of the pillars for a lean and healthy body. So
Mhm.
that's to me the first thing is identify true hunger. What does hunger feel like? I remember actually in school, when we in nutrition, we have all these debates, what's the best thing to eat for breakfast? What's the best thing to eat for lunch? And what's the best thing to eat for dinner? Well, we never debated, should I be eating breakfast? Should I be eating lunch? And should I be eating dinner? You see, there was never any debate on that. But that's to me the first debate you should be having is before you eat, should I be eating? And the good thing about hunger is something that we can learn to pay attention to. And once you identify and learn to pay attention to, every time somebody offers you food or you sit down to eat, all you have to do is reflect within, and you'll be able to tell whether you need to eat or not, because your body would tell you. But unfortunately, we're so cut off from our body's signals that people don't even realize that our body's talking to us, is telling us when to eat and when not to eat. So that would be the
Yeah.
one thing.
Mhm. Yes. So it is also can be misunderstood with the being thirsty. Yes. So
Yes.
to
Yep.
differentiate where it is really hunger and when it is just being thirsty. Yes, so sometimes we just need to drink more water. Although
Exactly.
you feel that you are hungry, but it is not. It is just your body also needs water. And if you don't drink enough, you can feel that, oh, I want to eat, but actually you have to drink. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought this up, because another question I get asked a lot, well, how can you tell the difference between craving and hunger? And here's how you can tell the difference. True hunger, you want to eat anything. So if you think you're hungry, ask yourself, would I be able to indulge on a piece of stale bread? If the answer is no, you're not hungry then. Because true hunger, you're not picky. If you're picky, you're not hungry. Or have you had ever happened to you where, excuse me, you had just finished dinner? An hour later, you come back to your kitchen, you go through the cabinets looking for something to eat. Ask yourself, can I go back eating what I just had for dinner? And I'm willing to bet the answer would be no. Then you're not hungry. Because true hunger, you're not picky. I do that with my kids all the time. They'll come down, Dad, I'm hungry. This is what we're having for dinner. Oh no, I don't want that. Well, then you're not hungry.
Mhm.
But we so used to. Uh, Again, I have my favorite foods, of course, that I like to eat. But when I get home at night, I don't care what my wife cooked. Everything tastes good. And that's the one way you can tell the difference between hunger and cravings. And I like what you said, that yes, if you think you're hungry, drink some water and then wait and see. Are you still hungry?
Yeah, yeah, this is very good advice. And also, I think that eating is habit.
Yes.
People can have this habit just to eat all the time, like they have breakfast and then in half an hour they see something sweet or something else and they or fruits or whatever and they just eat. Yeah, so it is just becomes like a habitual behavior and not being aware of these habits, and these are the habits which bring people the results which they don't want, right? So
Yes.
if we, someone who listen to us now, and if you think that you don't like results which you have now, the first thing is to start looking at your habitual behavior, because this is
Absolutely.
subconscious and it is not what we're aware of. But if we don't change our habits related to food, it will not nothing will change. Even if we go gym but don't change our habitual behavior regarding food, nothing will change also. And another thing is how we see ourselves. If
Yep.
people see themselves as they are now in their mind, also our subconscious mind is working this principle that whatever you lose you will gain back. Yes.
Exactly.
So also it is, I think in your practice also you help people with their mindset to see the image of the person they want to become and see
Exactly.
themselves as that already, right? So and impress that image into subconscious mind so that becomes the norm, and
Exactly.
then
Yep.
we will have results when we uh, lose the weight.
Yeah, exactly. Maintaining them.
Yeah.
But I like what you said before about the habits. I always tell people, uh, you know, nobody has a weight problem. And usually when I tell it to my clients when they first come in to talk to me, because what are you talking about? Look at me. I have a weight problem. Like, no, no, you don't have a weight problem. You have a behavior problem. The weight is only the side effect of your behaviors. And that's what we should be focusing on, is the behaviors, not the weight. Because to me, it's like, if you the weight is like you're focusing on the symptom, So I think to solve any problem, you got to look at the root cause of the problem, which is our daily habitual behaviors. And the mindset, you said it perfectly, is like everything starts with a mindset. The way I put it is like actually the first pillar to my program is developing a healthy mindset. In other words, a healthy way of thinking. And here's why this is important. To me, habits are driven by the way we think. And as a matter of fact, a lot of the habits we develop by the way we think. The thoughts come first, and that drives behavior. If you try to change the behavior without first changing the way you think, the analogy I like to use is like you're trying to bring your car to a stop by pressing on the brake, but never letting go of the gas. That is why I think weight loss has become so hard. It's because very few programs help people with changing their mindset and the way that they see themselves, which again drives behavior. But exactly to your point before, about the subconscious mind, you see the subconscious mind, besides maintaining the body's function, like your heart beating, your breathing, all that stuff, it also has one very important job, which is to maintain your self image, the way you see yourself. So if you see yourself as an overweight person, I don't care what you do, you can always end up back being overweight because subconscious mind will make sure that is correct. And that is why, to me, the first step to sustainable weight loss is to change your mindset, which includes changing your self image and the way you see yourself. Uh, but back to also what you were saying before about eating has become a habitual behavior. I actually blame the industry for this because think about it. Are you familiar with the Pavlov dog experiment? The Russian psychiatrist back in 1960s, I think it was. With a dog, he would ring the bell, feed the dogs, ring the bell, feed the dogs. What happened was the dogs started associating the ringing with food. So as soon as he would ring the bell, the dogs would salivate. Well, believe it or not, we've become the dogs. The clock is the bell. Society has taught us to eat by the clock. How many times it happened to you where you're working, you were really busy, and all of a sudden you look at the clock and it's like, let's say normally you eat lunch at 12, let's say, and it's 2 o'clock and you haven't eaten lunch yet. And you're like, oh my God, it's 2 o'clock, I haven't eaten yet. Well, technically you were not hungry. That's why you didn't eat. But because your mind was busy, you passed, but you looked at the clock and all of a sudden you looked at the clock and all of a sudden you're feeling hungry, although you were not hungry before. The clock is the trigger that tells the body, oh, no, no, we should be eating now. That's fake hunger. Does it make sense?
Yes, yes, exactly. Yes, again, it is just subconscious patterns which people take, not being aware of them, like different triggers which just make them eat, and also amount of food that they eat. They can eat much more than their body really needs.
Yes, which brings me to the next point. So then the next question is, how do you know how much you need to eat? And again, counting calories is a waste of your time because at the end of the day, uh, if let's say you figure out how many calories you need to eat every day, do you do the exact amount of activity every single day? No. So that means your body doesn't really need the exact same number of calories every single day. So, but how can you tell how much you need to eat? That's where slow and mindful eating comes in. Because when, again, your body would tell you when to stop eating if you listen to it. But in order to be able to hear your body, you got to learn to eat slow and mindful and stop paying attention to the taste of the food. You'll find that once you learn to eat slow and mindful and you stop paying attention, you'll find that at one point, the food no longer tastes as good as the first bite. Usually, the first bite tastes the best. As soon as you realize the food no longer tastes as good as the first bite, you stop eating. And I don't care if there's like 3 bites left on your plate, because most people gain weight not because they're overeating this much, it's because they're overeating every meal, but this much. I know it's hard to do to have 3 bites left and not eat it, but technically speaking, as soon as the food no longer tastes as good as the first bite, that's your sign you should stop eating. Does it make
Mhm.
sense?
Yes, so it is again about being aware what you do,
Yes.
how you eat. Yes, to eat slow, to feel your body if it is really you still have to eat that, or your body already says that it is enough. Yes, so
Yes.
to be just conscious about these habits, because usually all these habits are built in us when we are small, when
Yep.
infants, and then in our early days, the way how our parents were brought up, they just continue doing the same. And it is time to become conscious about that and understand that those habits were put in us by other people. And
Yep.
it is time now, if I want really different results in life, if I want to be fit, if I want to feel better, if I want to have great energy, now this is how I have to start creating new habits. And these new habits become from start from awareness and consciously, yes, like being present, because sometimes people eat and their mind
Yeah.
is somewhere else, they already plan where they will jump after that. And this is how this food is not digested properly, because we have to be present, and when we eat food we should be grateful for the food, and we should enjoy, and we should eat slow and really taste it and see the signals which our body also always sends us, if it is really enough and we have to stop. And also it is good saying that you should stop eating when you are still a little hungry, not when you feel that you cannot just eat anymore.
Exactly. I agree 100%. Actually, about what you just said, are you familiar with Okinawa, which is one of the longest living people on earth?
Yeah,
Uh,
it is Japan, yeah, from
yes.
Japan.
Do you know
Mhm.
they practice exactly what you said? Eat until 80% full. They even have a name for it, which I cannot remember what's the name, but I have a name for a practice that eat until 80% full. Never eat until you're stuffed. And talking about eating and about habits and how, unfortunately, we're teaching our kids a lot of bad habits right now. But I remember when I lived in Greece, it was drilled into our heads to make sure you're hungry before you got home for a meal, to the point that when I went to school there was no lunch periods. So basically, my mother would give us money. There's like a little store that sold snacks. So if you got hungry, I would go get a snack, because a lot of the times we did not eat breakfast when we left the house. This idea of breakfast is really a modern idea. Healthy cultures, breakfast it's not a main meal at all, and most of the time skip it completely. So anyway, so as a kid, if it was past 12 o'clock in the afternoon, even if I was hungry, I would not dare eat after 12, because I knew at 1:45, or I think it was 1 or 1:30, I had to be home to eat lunch, and I had to make sure I was hungry for lunch. And it's funny how we were taught that back then. Today, I mean, kids, oh, I'm hungry. Well, we're eating in an hour. I don't want to wait that long. No, you wait that long. It's okay. And by the way, even if you're truly hungry and you have to wait an hour or two, nothing wrong with that. Hunger is not an emergency. Hunger is actually a benefit. It's a good thing to be a little hungry, or a lot hungry. That's fine too.
Mhm. Yes, yes. So what about, as you said, skipping breakfast?
Okay, that's
For
the one
people,
that
yeah, for people who learned that they have to eat breakfast because body wakes up and it needs energy, all organs start moving, start
yes.
be active.
Uh, by the way, I came from that end because when I went to school, I learned like everybody else, breakfast the most important meal of the day. And honestly, in the beginning, I should teach my clients the same thing. And then one day I was talking to my mother, and she says to me, "You know, Sabra, why do you tell your clients that breakfast is the most important meal of the day?" And I told her, "Well, that's what I learned in school, and look at all the studies." And she asked me one question that changed my whole way of thinking. Because she goes, "Did you eat breakfast in Greece?" I go, "No." "The adults eat breakfast." "No." "Who's healthier?" That made me stop and think like, wait a minute. In Greece, nobody ate breakfast. And then when you look at other healthy regions, again, breakfast is something we had on the weekends, our special occasion, wasn't something we had normally. And then that caused me to start questioning what I learned in school. And that's when I started doing research. And I'm like, let me go look at all the studies that support the idea of breakfast. Well, guess what? 99% of all studies that support the idea of breakfast are paid by cereal companies. Conflict of interest, anyone? Then, if you take a little closer look, and by the way, I'm not the only one who done this. There's a professor, can't remember the guy's name, is from the University of Alabama, if I remember correctly. He took a really close look at, I think I had 95 studies, and I might mess up the years, but it was from 1992 all the way up to 2000 on breakfast. And what he found was all these studies that support breakfast are observational studies. Basically, not very good studies at all. They basically look at a whole bunch of people who ate breakfast were thinner and healthier than the people who did not eat breakfast. The conclusion was breakfast is what makes the difference. Wrong. If you look at those people who ate breakfast and look at their lifestyle, they ate much better and much healthier and exercised more than the group that did not eat breakfast. It wasn't the breakfast that kept them healthy and thin, it was everything else. But if the study's paid by cereal company or a food company, they're not going to tell you that. So to me, that was my wake up moment. Now, to your question about where you get the energy, okay, from your fat. In other words, fat, you have to be fat. We all have excess fat on us, which is stored energy. Did you know in the morning, the cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone, elevate pretty much for everybody? They naturally go up. I think for 78% of the population, it goes up. Now, not because you're stressed, it's because that's the hormone that signals the body to release fat from your fat cells into the bloodstream for energy. That's where your energy comes from. You don't need to eat food to have energy in the morning. The body naturally does that. Now, here's the problem though. If you go and eat in the morning when the cortisol levels are elevated, well, as soon as you eat, the body releases insulin. Well, insulin does the opposite job as cortisol, which means the body has to release more insulin than normal in order to overcome the cortisol levels, which, guess what? That's how insulin resistance begins to build up. And to me, like personally, I only eat once a day and have more energy to know what to do with it. I get up energetic. I feel like $1,000,000. I do my workouts during the day, and I don't have to worry about what's for lunch or what's for breakfast. And again, I'm not saying to the audience, by the way, you got to eat only once a day. You can get away eating a little more often. But to me, breakfast is, never mind the best meal of the day, the worst time to eat is breakfast. And the other thing I want to say, because sometimes they say things about, oh, farmers had this, big breakfast. The part that they leave out, farmers got up at what, at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. They worked in the field, they took care of the animals. Then they got home at 10, 11 o'clock and they had breakfast. Yeah, that's not really breakfast though. That's like, that's a lunch more like it because they've already been working. They don't get up in the morning, eat this heavy breakfast, and then go to work. Does it make
Yeah,
sense? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And also, I think that especially when people have this habit to eat something sweet in the morning, like
Yes.
they wake up and drink tea or coffee with some cakes or something sweet. So just based on what you told, it doesn't serve them in a good way.
It makes it worse. And by the way, nothing wrong. I don't have anything against coffee or tea. You want to have coffee or tea, fine. I mean, obviously, don't fill it up with sugar, you know. But to me, this again, the question that I have for people is that show me one healthy region that eats breakfast, like on a regular basis. Because in Greece, technically speaking, yeah, we ate breakfast on the weekends. Like on the weekend, we get this cheese pie, But during the week, people don't. Now, by the way, unfortunately, things have changed. They do eat breakfast, but look at their health. Not as
Mhm.
good as they used to be when I lived there in the 70s and 80s, you know. Uh, and unfortunately, it is like a battle for our minds. I mean, the constant marketing of food everywhere you turn, food, 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 food. And no wonder people have picked up all these bad habits. And what I'm trying to do is reverse them. It's an uphill battle, though.
Yeah. So what about supplements?
To me, supplements, do they make a difference? Yes, they probably do in the long run. In the long run, but are are not essential as much as they push them. I'm not against them, but I'm not a big pusher. To me, supplements, it's something that might not be a bad idea after you fix all the core habits first. Core habits meaning learning to eat out of true hunger, learning to eat slow and mindful, learning to take breaks from food. You've done all this stuff, and then learning to eat really good food. You've done those, then you might consider supplements. The problem I have with supplements is that the artificial ones are a complete waste of money. By the way, just so you know, if it's artificially made like vitamins and stuff, don't even waste your money on it. If it's a natural vitamin, did they provide some help? Maybe they do. But I am not a big pusher of supplements. Because I do believe you should be able to get the nutrition you need through the food that you eat. And the body, by the way, can absorb them better too.
Mhm. Yes, and there is opinion now that there is not so much nutrition in the soil as it was like 50 or 60 years ago. So how much people have to eat to provide a necessary level of calcium, which is necessary for brain, or other vitamins and nutritions like minerals. If you say that, for example, you eat once a day, so what you eat to make sure that you provide all the necessary elements?
Okay. Good question. I actually believe, with very strong evidence, that the amount of nutrients and micronutrients we need has been exaggerated by a lot by the supplement industry in order to promote the products. Because to me, I've been eating once a day, Monday to Friday. Weekends I eat a little more, and never had an issue or like protein deficiencies or any deficiencies. And if you look at these regions that people eat very little food and yet they have no deficiencies, and people say, oh, the food that they eat. But if you look at what they're eating, but let's put it this way. If I remember when I first graduated from school and I looked at all the nutrition that we need and all the micronutrients, it's almost impossible to get all those nutrients in our bodies without taking supplements. So in the beginning, I used to recommend supplements, but then I'm like, wait a minute, this makes no sense. That because I looked at when the way we ate in Greece. Again, people ate 1.5 times a day. When I looked at exactly what we ate, using the formulas that we have here, we were even with a higher amount of nutrients in our food, it still we did not get all the amount of nutrition that is they're telling me here that I need. How come we didn't have a deficiency there? And I believe also this is really interesting that a lot of the deficiencies come from our system not be able to absorb all the nutrients from our food. Because I don't know if you know this, that like how some people gain weight easily and some people can eat whatever they want and they don't gain an ounce, and I know a lot of people hate those people, but the reason they don't gain weight is not because they have a very fast metabolic rate, by the way, because metabolic rate is only a 10% difference. The biggest difference is absorption rate. In other words, you and I can eat the same, let's say 2,000 calories. It doesn't mean our bodies absorb 2,000 calories. My body might be less efficient and only absorbs 1,200 calories. 800 calories go through the system without getting absorbed. Your body is more efficient, which technically is a good thing, and absorbs all 2,000 calories. So you gain weight when I do not. Is the absorption rate is the problem. And what they found was when you do fastings, which improves the absorption rate, people have gotten over deficiencies. Don't you find that interesting that how can I get over deficiency when I'm fasting? I'm eating less, and yet all of a sudden I'm getting more nutrition. It's because the body becomes better at absorbing things. Does it make sense?
Yes. So, what you would recommend about fasting? Like, is it one day a week and not eat anything, just drinking water, or it is some periodic time?
I recommend a variety. If for a beginner, if somebody's not used to fasting, my recommendation would be to start with the 16-hour fast. Like intermittent fasting in a sense. Okay, where now one little thing there. A lot of people say to me, well, if I don't eat my breakfast, I get a headache or I get nauseous or I get something. Have you heard of people saying that?
Mhm.
That is because, oh, and as soon as they eat, the nausea goes away or the headache goes away. The reason they get nauseous or they get headaches has more to do with the body detoxifying. Because remember, when you take a break from food, the body releases a lot of the toxins stored in your fat cells. Well, those toxins first enter your bloodstream before they can leave the body. That causes the headache and the nausea. And as soon as you eat something, you stop the process, you feel better, but did you help your body? You did not. So
Mhm.
usually what I recommend people is to stretch the time slowly. In other words, let's say they normally finish eating dinner at 8 o'clock at night and they normally eat breakfast at 8 in the morning. I would say to them, push the breakfast to a little later or have your dinner a little earlier, whichever one you want to do. So we can stretch the time to 13 hours. Get used to it. Then maybe make it 14 hours. Get used to it. Eventually, I do try to get people to go to at least 16 hours or longer without food 3 to 5 days out of the week. It doesn't have to be every day, but 3 to 5 days a week. And the reason 16 hours is the, you want to call it the magic number, is because that's when your body uh, really had a chance to detoxify for a while. I don't know if you know the other benefits of fasting. Um, One of the other benefits, it gets rid of mutated and dysfunctional cells. I don't know if you're familiar with those. Those are the precancerous cells. It gets rid of misfolded proteins. Those are the precursors to a lot of the mental diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and those things. And that's why I recommend 16 hours minimum to eventually when I get to. You can go longer, and then once you get used to going to 16 hours, it's not a bad idea to do a 24-hour fast. Okay. I would go no more than 48-hour fast because after that, then you have to worry about refeeding. And then that's another whole conversation. Uh, but I think up to 48 hours, it's doable for the average person. But even if you do a 24-hour fast, it's actually a great idea because again, I can do a whole lecture, a whole show just on the benefits of fasting regularly.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Maybe we will record another episode and speak more about fasting. When people feel that they have headache, it is detoxification process, and they need to drink more water to
Yes,
help the body to take all these toxins out.
yes, actually, that's a. I'm glad you mentioned that because yes, drink some water. It will help flush out the system. I know, by the way, a lot of doctors would tell you that the body detoxifies all the time. You hear that all the time. Yes, that is true, but at a very slow pace. When you fast, the detoxification process speeds up dramatically. That's why. So to me, the detoxification that you're doing naturally is not fast enough because you have more toxins enter the system than leaving the system. That's why you need a break from food. Another way I like to put it, because the nutrition industry has focused so much on the foods that we're eating and not enough on other aspects of health and nutrition. What I teach my clients is there's two parts of proper nutrition. Part one is what you eat, which everybody knows. I don't think there's anything new there. Part two is how and why you eat. And just to show to your audience how important the how and why you eat is, are you familiar with the documentary Supersize Me? It was a documentary done in the States back, I think, maybe 15 years ago. This guy, Mr. Spurlock, he went to McDonald's and ate McDonald's food for 1 month straight.
Oh,
And
yeah,
you
yeah,
remember that?
I heard
He
that.
got
Yeah.
very sick. He gained 26 pounds and he had to stop. Okay. In 2011, I did the same experiment. I went to
Mhm.
McDonald's for 2 months, by the way, not 1 month like he did. I did 2 months straight. But, I went to the doctor. I had my blood work done before and after to see my cholesterol, everything. But I followed the three habits that I teach my clients is the 16-hour habit, which, Monday to Friday, eat only when hungry, and eat slow and mindful and stop eating when I satisfy my hunger. And
Mhm.
guess what happened to me after 2 months of McDonald's? Nothing. My cholesterol actually dropped 10 points and my weight went down 3 pounds, which is insignificant. I wasn't trying to lose weight anyway. Nothing happened. By the way, I'm not saying McDonald's food is good food. It's not good food. But the point I was trying to prove is when you listen to your body and you eat because of your body's signals, well, guess what? The body can better tolerate food that might not be as good for you,
Mhm.
and which, by the way, makes uh, diet less restrictive. And that's, by the way, why when I lived in Greece, we ate bread with every meal, white bread, by the way, pasta, potatoes, rice every day. How come we didn't have a weight problem? How come carbs didn't bother us there? Because we were eating out of true hunger, we were eating slow and mindful, and we did not stuff ourselves. Oh, and a little point about stuffing yourself. Here's another thing I like to tell people: overeating is not bad for you. Overeating all the time is bad for you. So if you overeat once in a while, but you've learned to listen to your body, because sometimes you go to a wedding, you go to an event, you're gonna stuff yourself. But if you have learned to listen to your body, you're gonna find naturally the next day you're gonna undereat automatically, like without even thinking, because
Mhm.
the body has stored the excess calories that you ate the day before, and the next day is using that up as energy. And that's one of the benefits of learning to pay attention to our body signals, because even when we do the wrong thing, the body automatically adjusts. And that's, to me, is about putting your fitness on the autopilot. That's why I always tell people the best way to get in shape so you stay in shape is to put your fitness on autopilot. So you have to think.
Yeah, just creating new habits. Yes,
Yes.
about how you eat. So, first rule, which Stavros shared with us, is to eat just when you are hungry. Second one is to eat meaningfully and slowly. And the third one is stop before you feel that you don't want to eat. Yeah, stop
Yep.
still when you are a little bit hungry. Yeah, and it
Exactly.
will help you not to get so much fat, extra fat or extra energy that your body needs. Yes, and our
Exactly.
body is so smart. Yes, so it can adjust in different ways. And when we just become aware and conscious and helping our body, this is how it will start making difference.
Exactly. And I think, unfortunately, we've been brainwashed by marketers. And that's how we end up changing the way that we eat. And it's an uphill battle because I've tried to teach my kids these habits too. And for the most part, they actually do pretty well because I'm trying to just teach them from young, and because that's going to carry on when they're adults. And I also, as far as junk food, because I want to mention junk food really quick, my rule on junk food is we need to make junk food special, because junk food is supposed to be a treat, something you have once in a while. Nothing wrong with having some junk food once in a while. And the rule that I have is Monday to Friday, I don't eat any junk food. Friday after 5 p.m., go ahead, have your cake, have your donuts, have whatever you like. You're gonna find over time you're not gonna be craving as much junk food because you can have it every weekend. Because I think a lot of diets are too strict. Oh, chocolate is bad, or you know, sodas are bad. I'm not saying they're good, but I'm also a realist that hey, having some soda once in a while, the body can deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just set a certain time when you
Yeah.
want to eat something like that, junk food or sweets. Yes, let's speak a little bit about sugar and sweets, because some people are very dependent and they feel like they need to eat sweets every day or chocolate or cakes, and they're feeling craving to that. What it
Yes.
means?
Well, the the way because a lot of people say to me, well, I love my sweets. Well, what would you tell somebody, an alcoholic, for instance? You know, should you continue if you're doing something that you know is harming the body? Okay, is that hard to change the habit? Yeah, yeah, it's gonna be challenging, but at the end of the day, does it worth the effort? So the question I would ask those people is, do you want to lose weight? Do you want to improve your health? Do you want to prevent diabetes? If you don't, then continue eating your junk food. That's fine. But first, you got to ask the question, why should I do this? And to me, the evidence are overwhelming that eating sweets constantly, the key here is constantly, by the way, it has a negative effect on your health. And I'll tell you my personal story of how, by the way, I used to be a huge junk food eater, sweets. I have a sweet tooth. Soda I used to have every day. Actually, my place right next to the diner, my uncles used to own the diner. So I used to go there, have soda throughout the day. So I know how exactly they feel. And I remember when I first tried to give it up, and for me, by the way, to give up junk food was really hard. You know why? Because I did not have a weight problem. But I knew sooner or later it's going to catch up with me. So for me to change my eating, my junk food habits was really hard because I wasn't seeing the negative effects on my body yet. But I decided, why wait? Oop,